Hey everybody, welcome to Talk with Antonio. I am your host Antonio. Well, today is August 7th, 2025, and this week's episode is going to be a little bit, you could say sad for the average wrestling fan, like mostly like the old school wrestling fans. And just yesterday on, let me see, August 5th, I believe. I'm sorry. Yeah, August 5th was the funeral it was finally laid to rest for the late and for the immortal Hulk Hogan. Well, first of all, I want to say my condolences to the family, to the wife, to their son Nick, to their daughter Brooke. But yeah, last week, 2 weeks ago, July 24th, Hulk Hogan passed away due to cardiac arrest. And when I heard that, I remember I heard, I got alert. I heard and I got alerts on my phone because since I subscribe to like wrestling websites and I get messages from my Blue Sky, from my Instagram, for my even though I don't use it as much, but I still keep getting for on Twitter. And I heard that they show pictures of Hulk Hogan in black and white. What the heck is going on? Kind of found out that Hulk Hogan passed away that day. I was like, what? I'm not going to lie, ladies and gentlemen. It was pretty shocking. It was extremely shocking. And I was like, oh shit. The biggest name in the history of professional wrestling has died. I was like, wow. I don't really know what to say about that. So let's start from the beginning. Let's first, he was born, Hulk Hogan was born Terry Gene Bollea on August 11th, 1953. And he was born in Augusta, Georgia. It says here that in his early life, he was the son of a construction foreman, Peter Bollea, and homemaker dance teacher Bernice Ruth. Hogan was of Italian, Panamanian, Scottish, and French descent. His paternal grandfather, also named Pietro, was born in 1886 in Segano, province of Vermicelli in Piedmont. Hogan had an older brother named Alan, who died at the age of 38 from a drug overdose. When he was 1.5 years old, his family moved to Port Tampa, Florida. As a boy, he was a pitcher in Little League Baseball. Hogan attended Robinson High School. He began watching professional wrestling at 16 years old. While in high school, he revered Dusty Rhodes, and he regularly attended cards at the Tampa Sportatorium. It was one of those wrestling cards where he first noticed superstar Billy Graham and began looking to him for inspiration. Since he first saw Graham on TV, Hogan wanted to match his, quote, inhuman, unquote, look. And I've noticed that Hulk Hogan's look was inspired by superstar Billy Graham, and even Scott Steiner has when he changed his look, and it was like basically another version of superstar Billy Graham. So I would say superstar Billy Graham was a major influence on Hulk Hogan and Scott Steiner and other wrestlers. I don't know who are the other wrestlers, but to me, both Hulk Hogan and Scott Steiner were superstar Billy Graham was a major influence on these two. And it says here that he was also a musician, spending a decade playing fretless bass guitar in several Florida-based rock bands. He wanted to study at Hillsborough Community College and the University of South Florida. After music gigs began to get into the way of his college, he dropped out of the University of South Florida. Eventually, Hogan and two musicians formed a band called Ruckus in 1976. The band soon became popular in the Tampa Bay region. During his spare time, Hogan worked out at Hector's Gym in the Tampa Bay area where he began lifting. Many of the wrestlers who were in the competing Florida region visited the bars where Ruckus was performing. Among those attending his performances were Jack and Gerald Briscoe. Impressed by Hogan's physical stature, the Briscoe brothers asked Hiro Matsuda. And speaking of Hiro Matsuda, it says that a lot of wrestlers who have trained on the guy have always been very critical of that guy. And it says here that in 1976, the two brothers asked Hogan to try wrestling. Hogan eventually agreed. At first, Mike Graham, the son of CFW promoter Eddie Graham, refused to put Hogan in the ring. According to Hogan, he met Graham while in high school, and the two did not get along. After Hogan quit Ruckus and started telling people in town he was going to be a wrestler, Graham finally agreed to accept the Briscoe brothers' request. During the first session of training, Matsuda broke Hogan's leg. After 10 weeks of rehab, Hogan returned to train with Matsuda and blocked him when he tried to break his leg again. And it says here that in 1977, after training more than a year with Matsuda, the Briscoe brothers dropped by Matsuda's gym to see Hogan. During the visit, Jack Briscoe handed Hogan a pair of wrestling boots and informed that he was scheduled to wrestle his first wrestling match the following week. In his first professional wrestling debut, Eddie Graham booked him against Brian Blair in Fort Myers, Florida on August 10, 1977 in CWF. A short time later, Hogan donned a mask and assumed the persona of the Super Destroyer, a hooded character first played by Don Jardine and subsequently used by other wrestlers. Hogan, it says here that Hogan eventually could no longer work with Matsuda, whom he felt was an overbearing trainer, and left CWF. After declining an offer to wrestle for the Kansas City circuit, Hogan took a hiatus from wrestling and managed the Anchor Club, a private club in Cocoa Beach, Florida, for a man named Whitey Bridges. Eventually, Whitey and Hogan became close friends and opened a gym together that became the Whitey and Terry's Olympic Gym. Soon after, Hogan's friend Ed Leslie, who later is known as become the Brutus Barber Beefcake, came to Cocoa Beach to help Hogan and Bridges manage both Anchor Club and Whitey Terry's Olympic Gym. In his spare time, both he and Leslie worked out together, and eventually Beefcake developed a muscular physique. And it says here that Hogan called superstar Billy Graham in 1978 and with hopes that Graham could find him a job wrestling outside of Florida. Graham agreed, and Hogan soon joined Louis Tillett's Alabama territory. Hogan also convinced Leslie, who had yet to become a wrestler, to come with him and promised to teach him everything he knew about the sport. But this is what I do remember seeing. The first time that Hogan wrestled and worked for the WWF, he did under Vince McMahon Sr. And it says here that he worked from 1979 to 1981, and his manager was Freddie Blassie. But it says here that Vincent J. McMahon was impressed with his charisma and physical stature. But it says here that it doesn't really say, but it's been well known that Vince McMahon Sr. fired Hogan because he appeared on in the movie Rocky 3 as Thunderlips. Everyone remembers that. But he says that Vince fired Hogan because he did not want his wrestlers to appear in movies, which in my opinion, that's kind of fucking stupid if you ask me. I believe that is the most stupid thing that Vince McMahon Sr. could have ever done. I mean, why though? If he would appear in a movie, he would have made wrestling, his wrestler more popular. It would have gotten more exposure at that time for the WWF or WWF. I'm sorry, or let me see. I'm sorry. Yes, it's 1979. It was already WWF, but. And then he came back. He left. He went to Japan. He went to the AWA, and then he came back in January 24th, 1984. Actually, it says here that from 1983 to 1993, the rise of Hulkamania. It says here that after purchasing the company from his father in 1982, Vince K. McMahon had plans to expand the territory into a nationwide promotion, and he handpicked Hogan to be the company's showpiece attraction due to his charisma and name recognition. Hogan made his return at a television taping in St. Louis, Missouri on December 27, 1983. But it says here, but it's also very well known that Bob Backlund, before he lost the title to the Sheik, Bob Backlund did not want to lose the championship to Hogan because, according to Bob Backlund, he says that Hogan was not really a quote-unquote wrestler. But, Bob Backlund came from from a different period. Even the late Scott Hall said that when he wrestled Bob Backlund in WrestleMania 9, I believe, Bob Backlund was from a very different time, and so for Bob Backlund, he said they told him he had to lose to Hogan, and he steadily refused to do that. So, nope. So it says that Bob Backlund lost the championship, the World Wrestling Federation Championship, to the Iron Sheik, and then on January 24th, 1984, the day Hulkamania was born, and he defeated the Iron Sheik, and he became the World Wrestling Federation Champion, and that was the start of Hulkamania. And but it says here that look what it says here. In 1984, similarities between Hogan's character and that of the Incredible Hulk led to the quitclaim deal between Titan Sports, Marvel Comics, and himself, wherein Marvel obtained the trademarks Hulk Hogan, Hulkster, and Hulkamania for 20 years, and Titan agreed to no longer refer to him as the Incredible nor simply Hulk, or even dress him in simple purple or green. Marvel also subsequently received 0.9 of reputable gross merchandise revenue associated with Hogan, $100 for each of his matches, and 10% of Titan's portion of his other earnings under this name. This extended to WCW, whose parent company, Turner Broadcasting System, merged with Time Warner. In 1996, became sister companies with Marvel rival DC Comics. As well as Hogan was underway with the NWO. Oh, actually, I'm not going to say that right now. But it says here that Marvel Comics had to come to an agreement with Time Sports for Hogan to be called Hulk Hogan. And in my opinion, I've always wondered, how much did Hulk Hogan pay Marvel Comics to finally give up everything? Hulk Hogan, Hulkamania, the Hulkster, anything that has to do with the name Hulk Hogan. I've always wondered how much this dude paid Marvel, and in my opinion, that I cannot even imagine how much this dude paid Marvel Comics to give everything about of the name Hulk to the human being. And it says here from the 80s up until the early 90s, Hogan became the quintessential, the face of wrestling. He became the star. He became everything. He made the WWF as this giant company that, because of him, the wrestling company expanded everywhere around the world, not just the United States, but around the world. When people say Hulk Hogan, automatically he was the star of the WWF. And it says here that in WrestleMania 3 Hogan said that WrestleMania 3 was the greatest moment of his life. 93,000 people in the Pontiac Silverdome. I believe that was him, Hogan against Andre the Giant for the main event for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. And that match, that's where he body slammed Andre the Giant. And let me see if I could find it. Give me 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. Alrighty. Let me see. Alright, here it is. On this date, Hulk Hogan body slam Andre the Giant is one of the most incredible matches in WrestleMania history. Let's see. You're going to hear it. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen.
Look at the look of disdain on the face of Andre. What's Hogan saying to him, I wonder? What could Hogan possibly be saying to him? Certainly like to be able to read lips at this point.
This is courtesy of World or WWE.
Shoved by Andre, and the champion retaliates. Oh, big right hand blocked by the champion. And the Hulkster unloading, going for a slam. Oh, he almost got him up. Oh, he collapsed. 1, 2. 2 count only. Was that 2 or was that 3? 2 count only. Ooh, that was close, Gorilla. Shoulder was up. Oh, was that close? Andre thinks he won it just like that. Hogan is hurt. Hogan went for a body slam early in the bout, and he may have injured his back. May have hurt that little bit. He missed the foot underneath that. Oh, he dropped the big guy. Looking heated. He's been out of shape. That's the first time I think that the Giant's ever been knocked off his feet like that.
This is the moment right here that the late Andre the Giant passed the torch to Hulk Hogan. Listen to this.
The greatest professional athlete in the world today. Look at this. He's
Whoa.
I don't believe it. Oh, dropping a big leg. Over for the cover. He got it. Unbelievable.
That was an epic moment.
I never thought it could be done, Gorilla. Neither did these 93,000 plus. As the world's heavyweight champion, Hulk Hogan has proven to everyone what he's made of. What can I say? I never thought it could be done, Gorilla Monsoon.
That's considered probably one of the most biggest moments in the history of the WWF/WWE and even WrestleMania. And what Andre the Giant did there for Hogan, he passed the torch to him, and saying he was the next star. And this is where I'm gonna get into right now. Okay, like I said, Hogan was the star. He was everything. He made the company, the WWF, millions and millions of dollars. But, when it comes to money, there also comes to politics. And I'm not talking about politics in terms of Republican, Democrat, none of the above. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about politics in terms of what will Hulk Hogan do for him to stay on top, and the people who want to be next in line to take him down. He's going to do whatever he did whatever he could to stay on top. Like, for example, Jesse Ventura, he did an interview, and he mentioned about how he sued Vince McMahon because of royalties, and when he took Vince McMahon to court, and also he also mentioned that he tried to unionize wrestling, and somebody ratted him out, but at that time he didn't know who did it. So when Jesse Ventura took Vince McMahon and Time Sport to court because of royalties, and Jesse was like, I want to know who the fuck ratted me out. And when when Vince McMahon went to court, and they deposed him, and then the lawyer asked Vince McMahon he said, Mr. McMahon, has anyone wanted to unionize wrestling? And Vince McMahon said, and I quote, "Yeah, I believe that Jesse Ventura spouted his mouth about that." Did you hear him say that? No, Hulk Hogan told me. And Jesse was, what the fuck? And he says that they say in court you can't show emotion, but this dude said that he was gonna go, like, he wanted to tip over, because he said that at that time Hogan was his friend, and he found out that, and even Hogan at that time denied it, but Vince McMahon was asked again on Larry King Live, and he confirmed it. So it was Hulk Hogan who ratted Jesse Ventura to Vince McMahon because of Star Union, but he found out why he did that. He says that for WrestleMania 3, This is what Jesse Ventura says. For WrestleMania 3, Hogan was paid more than all of us combined. Now, why would you want a union when he's being taken care of? Imagine that, unquote. So, yeah. So, Hogan did what he could to stay on top. And he was the face of the company from all throughout the 80s. 1980, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91. But, around the early 90s, his star power was waning. And so I believe in 1990 he was already out, because I do remember when I started watching wrestling, Hogan was not there anymore. And Vince McMahon wanted to go into a different direction for the quote unquote new generation. So Vince wanted to focus on not the muscular physique guys. He wanted to focus on smaller, quicker guys like Bret Hart, Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels, Big Daddy Cool Diesel, etc. All these guys. So Hogan was already out by that time. And here comes the next part of what was going on with Hulk Hogan. I have notes here. I wrote this probably a while back. Who would have thought I would use them till now? And these are notes from the book The Death of WCW, written by R.D. Reynolds and Brian Alvarez. It says here, Chapter 1, Part 1, The Birth, 1988-1996. Mr. Turner's Baby Boy, page 33. And what does this have to do with Hogan? Give me 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. It says here, and I quote, "For the early years of WCW life under the Turner Empire, the booking duties ping-ponged between two men, Dusty Rhodes and Ole Anderson. Amazingly, despite both having great successful booking runs in regional promotions in the past, neither man seemed to have any clue as to how to run a wrestling company on a national basis. Both had their own agendas, namely pushing themselves and their friends to the high-paying main event slots. And when things didn't go their way, then they tended to act like little babies, doing things that neither the company nor, ironically, themselves any good. A perfect example of this came in 1988 when higher-ups in the Turner hierarchy informed Dusty Rhodes that blood was to be banned from the WCW television programs. Dusty, pissed at being told what to do, had the Road Warriors come out to the ring, grab a metal spike, and hold him and jam him right into his eye. Suffice to say, Rhodes' orbital socket soon resembled a crimson version of Old Faithful. To the shock of no one save perhaps Dusty himself, he was immediately fired." And I've always heard from Eric Bischoff that Ole Anderson was a type of dude. Like he says, both Dusty Rhodes and Ole Anderson had agendas. And he said that, and this is for directly talking about Ole Anderson, he says that this dude had a tendency to curse out anything or anybody that shit did not go his way. And for Eric Bischoff, when he was hired to be an executive producer for WCW at that time, he said that you can't run a company like that, especially in a corporate environment. No more. And he says that was it. He demoted Ole Anderson from one of being the higher ups and the Turner in WCW to a trainer in the power plant. So that was it. No, and these are Eric Bischoff's words. No more corporate for you, dude. And Ole Anderson stayed there, but since he was demoted to being a trainer, and he started trashing, bad-mouthing Eric Bischoff at the power plant. But he also, at the same time, hired Blackjack Mulligan, and this is what Eric Bischoff has said, that because Blackjack was in trouble, he needed a little help, so he gave him a hand. He helped him out, and because Blackjack was a very well-known, loyal guy, and he was loyal, extremely loyal to Eric Bischoff because he gave him a job and during his lowest point in time. And he says that he was grateful to Eric Bischoff that when he heard that Ole Anderson was trashing him, Blackjack just came up and just fucking beat the shit out of Ole Anderson because of what he was sticking up for Eric, you know. But yeah, but WCW was, you know, started to change. And sorry if I got off track, but I had to mention this, and here's the reason why. Okay, Hogan came back in 1993. Around April 4th, I believe it was for WrestleMania 9, and he was in he was going to fight against Money Incorporated for the WWF Tag Team Championships. He was with teaming up with Bruises Barber Beefcake as a Mega Maniacs, and it says here that and this is another thing right here. Okay. Excuse me. It says here that, okay, in WrestleMania 9, it's always been known to be the big... That pay-per-view was probably one of the biggest clusterfuck in the history of clusterfucks. And what do I mean by that is this, okay. As I said before, Hogan was teaming up with Bruises Barber Beefcake as the Mega Maniacs. They were supposed to fight Money Incorporated for the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championships. But they say that at that time, Hogan was holding Vince McMahon and the WWF hostage because this dude wanted to be in the main event. And Vince McMahon apparently said no because we wanted to move to a new generation, into another direction. But Hogan, you know, being the fucking politician that he was, got his way. And at that pay-per-view, the main event was newly crowned champion Bret the Hitman Hart against Yokozuna. That was the main event for WrestleMania 9. And I watched that pay-per-view. And I remember, what's his name? Bret put Yoko in the sharpshooter. And Mr. Fuji got some, like a shitload of salt and threw it at Bret's eyes. And Yoko pinned him, and Yoko became the world champion. And all of a sudden, here comes Hulk Hogan. He inserted himself in the main event, supposedly pretending to be concerned for Bret. And everyone knows that Hogan, according to Bret Hart, Hogan said that he was going to return the favor, supposedly. And yeah, that happened. Yoko challenged Hogan for the World Wrestling Federation Championship at that same pay-per-view. And he went in, he punched Yoko, and then Yoko was punching him, and then what's his name? Fuji came in, he grabbed again, a shitload of salt. He was going to throw it at Hogan's eyes, but eventually it landed into Yoko's eyes. And he punched Hogan punched both Fuji and then Yoko, and then he did the leg drop, and then he became the World Wrestling Federation Championship at that time for the 5th time, and that ended the pay-per-view. Hogan again politicked his way to become the World Wrestling Federation champion at that pay-per-view. And Hogan, according to Bret, said that Hulk came up to him and said, I'll return the favor. He says, I hope so, Terry. I hope so. Those are Bret's words. And King of the Ring, and then he just sat out and he just waited until the King of the Ring. He was supposed to fight. He fought against Yoko. And at the main event, Yoko beat him because of a disguised cameraman who was eventually Harvey Whippleman. A camera exploded and hit Hogan's eye. And Yoko beat Hogan, and he became the World Wrestling Federation champion. And he left the pay-per-view, and that would be Hulk Hogan's last ever appearance in the WWF for the next 9 years, because the following year he just sat out for the remainder of his contract. But before I forget, this is what it says here. This is still from the death of WCW. Hogan had left the WWF early in the year following a blow-up with Vince McMahon over the way he was being booked. Hogan felt that he should be still the focal point of the company, the champion. McMahon disagreed, preferred to focus on younger guys such as Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, believed they would connect with a, quote, new generation of fans. They got into a bitter argument following Hogan's title win at WrestleMania 9 as McMahon wanted Hogan to drop the belt to Bret Hart and, quote, pass the torch in the process. Hogan, being the out-of-touch individual that he is, stuck in his mindset of the 1980s, refused, saying that Bret Hart was way too small. Instead, he put the enormous Yokozuna at that year's King of the Ring pay-per-view and then disappeared from the company to pursue acting and wrestle occasional big show in Japan. And according to that really rubbed Bret Hart the wrong way, and from that day on, Bret held some very bad feelings toward Hulk Hogan. And I will talk about that for another time. I'm not really focusing on about Bret and Hogan right now. That's for another time. And yeah, I do remember seeing that Hogan just left. And that will be the last appearance for him for the next 9 years, because the following year, June 11th, 1994, Hulk Hogan signed with WCW. Knowing that Ted Turner, who owned WCW, signed one of the biggest wrestling stars in the history of wrestling to his company, that right there was, they knew that they were going to compete with Vince McMahon in the WWF at that time, because he signed with them in 1994. And there's a video, you can all look it up on YouTube, how Hogan showed up at Disney MGM Studios, and it says here that his arrival, this is still from the Death of WCW notes, his arrival was celebrated with an elaborate parade complete with confetti, and sure enough, Hogan was booked as the number one contender and set his sights on the current WCW champion, Ric Flair, who had to turn heel as soon as Hogan arrived. Hogan easily conquered Flair at the Bash at the Beach, selling out the Orlando Arena and doing a colossal 1.02 buy rate for the company, one of the largest ever. But here's something though. But something funny happened on the way to the event. The fans who have been so hot for the Hogan Flair showdowns seemed suddenly to lose interest in what Hogan was doing. And when the buy rates came in for Starrcade, the company was at 0.6. It was 40% lower than we had done for Havoc 2 months earlier. Obviously, Ed Leslie was no Ric Flair. And what do they mean by that? Okay. WCW really wanted to recreate the days of Hulkamania in WCW. But I remember watching the documentary at the time for it was called for E's True Hollywood Story. They were talking about Hulk Hogan at that time. And even Jimmy Hart, they interviewed him, heard people when Hogan was being pursued, pushed as the ultimate good guy and all that stuff. They actually heard some boos directed at Hogan. And that's where things, I was like, oh shit, things need to change. Because in WCW, look, you got to understand, the WWF at that time was the North. WCW was in the South, which was the headquarters was in Atlanta, Georgia. And the Southern fans have a different mentality when it comes to wrestling, because if my memory serves correctly, Hogan, Vince McMahon he calls it, he's in the sports entertainment business. And when Ted Turner called Vince, he says, "Hey Vince, I'm in the wrestling business." And Vince McMahon said to him, "Congratulations, Ted, I'm in the sports entertainment business." So I firmly believe that Ted Turner wanted to recreate the days of Hulkamania in WCW. But at the same time, yes, they were all fucking happy. But in my opinion, I'm sorry, but they failed fucking miserably. And the thing is, with Hogan, when he signed with the WCW, he had absolute creative control in his contract. That at that time, nobody else had it, only him. But, in 1995, that was another a weird year for WCW because Hogan, to me, was just floundering around. Hell, even when the debut of Monday Nitro, he was just there. You know what I'm saying? And now here comes one of the very interesting parts of Hulk Hogan in WCW. Okay, before we get into that, okay, let's go back to the WWF in the year of 1996. Okay. Actually, I'm sorry, let's go back to 1995. As I said before, Vince McMahon wanted to create a new style of wrestling. He did the new generation era. And they wanted to focus like Bret Hart, Razor Ramon, Diesel, Shawn Michaels, 1, 2, 3 Kid, Owen Hart, etc. Just like smaller dudes, not like overly like buffed up guys. And around that time, Razor Ramon was one of the biggest stars of the WWF. And he said that he was a champion. And he says, let me see if I can find it. Give me 1 second. This is going to be a short one, by the way. Both the stars, both Scott Hall and Razor Ramon and Diesel were the big stars at that time. But there was another thing that I think if it wasn't for Scott Hall and Kevin Nash not leaving, I don't think that would have happened what was going to happen in around that same year. Actually, I'm not going to put it. I'm sorry. But there's an interview with RF Video when they asked Scott Hall of how the whole jump from WWF to WCW, and he explained that everything was going up, the money was going up, and then it started to level off. His paid had plateaued, and he was like he went to go talk to Vince, and they wanted to ask for more money. And Vince McMahon did not want to give it to him. The same thing with Diesel. His pay has been plateaued. And they were like, dude, they wanted, the thing is that they not, at that time, wrestlers did not have guarantees. That's another thing I forgot to mention. No one had guarantees at that time. And both Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, Razor Ramon, Diesel, were asking for more money. And Scott Hall basically went to Stanford to meet with Vince and J.J. Dillon, and Vince said no, they don't want to do that. And then he mentioned that 1, 2, 3 Kid was feeling out WCW, so he was talking to his agent Barry Bloom, and he was also the agent of Scott Hall. And Kid told Scott of how much he was getting paid, and Scott said, "They're paying you how much? See how bad they want me." So basically, he said he said they were gonna offer him. So he signed a letter to go to WCW, and he gave his notice. He was suspended. Basically, he was suspended because he took a piss test because they found drugs, and the piss test was low but at the same time, everyone knows that they were pissed off. The company was pissed off because Scott Hall was leaving, and Diesel, Kevin Nash, left because of the finish that happened with that In Your House against Bret Hart in the steel cage match. And he said that everyone wanted to make more money. But I guess Vince caved, and he said they're going to do Bret's way because he did not want to make look weak in a steel cage match. And even Nash has said in an interview that even The Undertaker was pissed off because he says, that's what Nash says, and I quote, Undertaker said that, "Motherfucker, this isn't about you." And so he calls Scott Hall and he says, I'll fucking be joining you. But at the same time, he still talked to Vince McMahon. He talked to him in Stockton, California. And Nash said to Vince McMahon, I mean, you don't have to match this. Just guarantee it. Just guarantee it, But Vince said, no, we can't do that. So I believe after WrestleMania 12, Diesel lost to The Undertaker. And then at that famous house show at Madison Square Garden, they all wrestled. Razor Ramon wrestled Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Diesel wrestled against Shawn Michaels for the championship in another steel cage. And after the match, all of them came out, and both Kevin Nash, both Diesel and Razor Ramon all hugged, and they all just like shook hands and they all hugged because they were all friends. Razor Ramon, Diesel, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and Shawn Michaels. But if you everyone's seen the curtain call incident, that really scandalized because they wanted to keep the illusion that wrestlers outside of the ring were not friends in real life because they wanted to quote unquote keep kayfabe. But in the camera and the recording, you could see how they all hugged and they all like lifted their hands up like in victory. But they didn't punish Shawn Michaels because he was the champion at that time. They could not punish Razor Ramon and Diesel because they were on their way to WCW. But the only guy that really got punished was Triple H. That year, he was supposed to win the King of the Ring tournament in 1996. But you know what? I'm glad that shit happened because if Hunter Hearst Helmsley or Triple H had not been part of the curtain call incident, then Stone Cold would have not done that famous Austin 3:16 speech. And that was probably one of the greatest things of all time in the history of professional wrestling. And yeah. So that happened. Both Razor Ramon and Diesel showed up on the week of Memorial Day of 1996. Scott Hall showed up, and he was talking to this, like basically acting like Razor Ramon, but he did not call himself Razor Ramon. He was just acting like him, but they could not call him by the name that was the trademark name that was owned by the WWF. And then the following week, Kevin Nash showed up, another guy, but he was acting like Diesel, but they couldn't use the names. And then around that same time, the WWF sued the WCW because of that whole character of how Razor Ramon was using the mannerisms. He even had the toothpick, and even Diesel. But that's for, like I said, that's for another time. Now, here comes the interesting part. When they debuted, because the storyline was they were, quote, invaders, like WWF wrestlers invading WCW. And they were being confronted, and at the time, though they were the biggest names for the World Wrestling Federation at that time. And who was the biggest name that was known for the World Wrestling Federation at that time? Hulk Hogan. And this is another note that I have here. This is from Controversy Creates Cash. This is what Eric Bischoff wrote. And I quote, as I mentioned that how around that time people were actually booing Hulk Hogan, even though he was portrayed as the babyface. Some people were like, hey, we don't want this guy. This is what Eric Bischoff said. Hogan as a heel. At the beginning of 1996, I began thinking a lot about Hulk Hogan as a character. His character, from my point of view, had played itself out. Exactly. That's something that I do hardly agree with Eric Bischoff. The more I thought about it, the more I came back to one idea. Hulk Hogan was one of the all-time great babyface characters. What would be the impact if he turned heel? Handled correctly, it would be huge. By this time, I had a good relationship with Hogan on a personal level. So I called him and I said, Hulkster, what are you doing next Tuesday? I'd like to come down to Florida and run some ideas by you. Hogan said, sure, brother, come on down. So I flew down to Tampa, rented a car, and went to his mansion on the beach. Sat down, had a beer, shot the shit for a while, and got caught up. Everything was great. Then I walked him through the idea of he might turn heel. Hogan stroked his Fu Manchu for what seemed like 20 minutes. Then he said, and I quote, "Well, brother, until you walk the mile in my red and yellow boots, you'll never really understand." And with that, he looked at his watch and said, and I quote, "I'm sorry, I've got to pick my kids up from school." He showed me to the door. So basically, Eric Bischoff was thrown out. He was just shown the door because Hogan at that time was not ready to become a bad guy. And it's very well known that when they were creating the NWO storyline, originally it was going to be Bret Hart. Because at that time, after WrestleMania 12, his contract with the WWF was up. But I guess Bret, we all know that he stayed with the WWF. And the other backup was Sting. But the main one was Hulk Hogan. But since if Hogan didn't want to turn a bad guy, they wanted Bret Hart. But Bret stayed with the WWF. And the backup was Sting. But at that time, I don't think nobody would have booed Sting. Because Sting is, if people think that Hogan turned him bad guy, they booed him. Nobody booed Sting if Sting was the quote-unquote bad guy. But in 1996, as both Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were showing up, invading, interfering in other matches, people were cheering for that. And I was actually one of them because me and my brother and me were always channel surfing WWF and WCW. And I was cheering for them because to me, they were Razor Ramon and Diesel. They were in another company, though. So I was cheering for them. And Hogan paid attention and noticed that these two dudes were getting cheered. And he wanted to do that. And this is from the death of WCW. Hogan checks in. About this time, I got a call from... This is from Eric Bischoff. About this time, I got a phone call from Hulk Hogan. And says, "Hey, brother, what are you doing? Come out to L.A. I want to talk to you." Hogan sent a limo for me. It took me out to the mountains about an hour and a half from L.A. I got to his trailer about 9 or 10. He just finished filming, and there was a cooler of beers and a couple of Cuban cigars, Montecristo No. 4s, I believe, sitting out. We kicked back and caught up on things. Hogan said, and I quote, "So, brother, who's the third guy?" Unquote. Bischoff said, and I quote, "Well, Hulkster," I told him, "I don't know yet. I haven't made up my mind." Unquote. "Well, I know who the third guy should be," Hogan said, quote. And Eric Bischoff said, and I quote, "Who would that be?" Unquote. Hogan said, "You're looking at him." Unquote. Eric said, "Well, that's interesting, Hulk, but the only way that's going to work if you turn heel." Unquote. Hogan said, "Brother, I'm already there." Hogan as a heel. 4 or 5 months ago, Hogan had gently thrown me out of his house for suggesting he turn heel. Now he saw the outsider story unfold. He wanted to be a part of it. Would he or wouldn't he? That was another thing that was creating a lot of controversy. Not controversy, I'm sorry. A lot of speculation. What's going to happen? Because around that time, Bash at the Beach was coming up. It was going to be Hulk Hogan. At that time, it was Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, with the third guy who was still a mystery partner against Lex Luger, Macho Man Randy Savage, and Sting. But at that time, even in the same interview of RF video Scott Hall did, they didn't know that Hogan was not sure he was going to turn heel because when the pay-per-view was on, he was already flying from L.A. on a private plane to arrive in Daytona Beach, Florida. So they couldn't get a hold of him on the phone on the plane. And it was like, oh, shit, what's going to happen? They were not sure if he was going to do that. And this is what he said. Would he or wouldn't he? Despite what he said, a large part of Hogan remained apprehensive. He had been a babyface for almost all of his professional wrestling career. To shed that red and yellow was a big step. You have to understand the red and yellow meant a lot outside the ring. Hulk Hogan is a good human being outside the ring. He's got a big heart. He's a guy who does a lot of work for charity. He knew if he turned heel, all this would be affected. A lot of the good guy into a bad guy, you do really affect, in some small way, the lives of those with children. And Hogan took that very seriously. He knew there would be a lot of Make-A-Wish kids and a lot of the young fans, people he worked with, wondering why Hogan was now a bad guy. They literally feel betrayed by their hero. For a lot of people, something that will not be a factor into a decision, but it was something Hulk was very concerned about. And to a degree, yeah, because a lot, like in wrestling, yeah, there's adults who are fans, but the main fans are kids, and they would see Hulk Hogan be a bad guy, they would break their hearts. So, in that aspect, I do understand Hulk Hogan, where he's coming from. It says here also that Hulk had also had 2 young kids at that time and had to think about how this transition would affect them. As silly as that might seem to the outside world, what a wrestler does can have an immense impact on his family, especially young kids. Their friends don't understand the business, and no parent wants to subject their children to things that are tough to deal with. Especially, let me see here. Especially it's not necessary. Hogan had some money, more money that he could spend, so he didn't need to turn heel. We discussed the implications daily up to Daytona Beach, where the pay-per-view was going to take place. Even then, I wasn't entirely sure Hulk was going to go through with it. And that's what everyone was saying, that nobody knew if Hogan was going to be up for it. He might say yes, like I said before. Hogan had a creative control in his contract. So, and here's the pay-per-view of, this is Bash at the Beach 1996, and this is courtesy of WWF, or WWE, I'm sorry. Here's the pay-per-view.
Man, and then there was one, and it was Sting, and he didn't look too good. Hulkamania.
Here he comes.
Hulk Hogan is here. Hulk Hogan's here. Hulk Hogan is in the building. You damn right he is. Go get him, Hulkster. Yeah, but whose side is he on? What are you talking about? Whose side is he on? What are you talking about? Yes, sir. Get him, Hogan. Go get him, baby. Come on and get some of this now. Who's bad now, boys? Hulk Hogan arrived. Hulk. What is he doing? My God. Is he the third man? He's the third man. What the hell is going on here? Hulk Hogan has betrayed WCW. He is the third man. Look at this picture. Oh, my God. What the hell is going on? Oh, my God. Are you kidding me? Probably the lowest shot ever given to professional wrestling. That man did right there, Hulk Hogan. Let's get everybody out of the dressing room right now and kick his rear end. Unbelievable, brother. You just sold your soul to the devil. These years? Huh? What have I been saying all these years? Oh, my God. A career of a lifetime. Right down the drain, kid. I hope you love it. Can you see just sold your soul to the devil. See those little Hulksters with the tears rolling down their face right now? We are not going to even acknowledge that 3 count. Now what happens to us? What happens now to WCW? There was no 3 count. I never thought I would say that he's yellow, but he may be wearing red, but he's wearing red and yellow. What do we do now? What a load. I'll tell you what. This is a unbelievable situation right here at Bash at the Beach. Hulkamania, the third guy with the outsiders, betrayed WCW. Can't talk. Well, I told you so. Enjoy it, my friend. You got to look yourself in the mirror. You got to stand up and look in the mirror. There you go. That's right. I never thought I'd see people throwing debris at Hulk Hogan. I knew it should have been done a long time ago. I guess this was premeditated all the way back from '94. I guess this is what it was. Look at the ring. The most incredible scene. And Savage, his best friend, one of his best friends, Hogan turns on. Ladies, I don't know where we're going. He has slept with the devil.
We need to get someone out there and.
Okay, now that's 3. Now where do we go from here?
Oh my God!
What about Nitro tomorrow? What happens on Nitro?
Gene, I don't know what you think of this, my man, but this has to be the absolute worst moment in my broadcasting career, and we're all witnessing it.
Look at Oakland. He looks like he's going to break up.
This is considered one of the most important speeches of all time.
Hulk Hogan, excuse me. What in the world are you thinking?
Me, Gene, the first thing you need to do is to tell these people to shut up if you want to hear what I got to say.
I have been with you for so many years. For you to join up with the likes of these 2 men absolutely makes me sick to my stomach. And I think that these people here and a lot of other people around the world have had just about enough of this man, and you want to put yourself in this group? You've got to be kidding me.
Well, the first thing you got to realize, brother, is this right here is the future of wrestling. You can call this the new world order of wrestling, brother. These 2 men right here came from a great big organization up north, and everybody was wondering who the 3rd man was. Well, who knows more about that organization than me, brother?
I've been there, I've done that. You have made the wrong decision, in my opinion.
Well, let me tell you something. I made that organization a monster. I made people rich up there. I made the people that ran that organization rich up there, brother. And when it all came to pass, the name Hulk Hogan, the man Hulk Hogan, got bigger than the whole organization, brother. And then billionaire Ted, amigo, he wanted to talk turkey with Hulk Hogan. Well, billionaire Ted promised me movies, brother. Billionaire Ted promised me millions of dollars. And billionaire Ted promised me world caliber matches. And as far as billionaire Ted goes, Eric Bischoff and the whole WCW goes, I'm bored, brother. That's why these 2 guys here, the so-called outsiders, these are the men I want as my friends. They're the new blood of professional wrestling, brother. And not only are we going to take over the whole wrestling business with Hulk Hogan and the new blood, the monsters with me, we will destroy everything in our path, Mean Gene.
Look at all of this crap in this ring. This is what's in the future for you if you want to hang around the likes of this man Hall and this man Nash.
As far as I'm concerned, all this crap in the ring represents these fans out here. For 2 years, brother, for 2 years, I held my head high. I did everything for the charities. I did everything for the kids. And the reception I got when I came out here, you fans can stick it, brother. Because if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, you people wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff would be still selling meat from a truck in Minneapolis. And if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, all these Johnny-come-latelys that you see out here, wrestling wouldn't be here. I was selling out the world, brother, while they were bumming gas to put in their car to get to high school. So the way it is now, brother, with Hulk Hogan and the New World Organization of Wrestling, brother, me and the new blood by my side, what you gonna do when the New World Organization runs wild on you? What you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Don't touch me, I've got a fleet of lawyers. Tony, Bobby, Dusty, damn it, let's get back to you.
has seen the end of Hulkamania. For Bobby the Brain Heenan, for Dusty Rhodes, Gene Okerlund, I don't know. I'm Tony Schiavone. Hulk Hogan, you can go to hell.
And that's when Hulk Hogan turned bad guy for the first time ever. And because of him and the three of them, Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash, they created the NWO. And yes, they were responsible for making WCW the higher ratings in the history of WCW. And they beat Raw for 83 weeks straight because of the NWO storyline. So WCW was on a roll. They had everything. I remember my brother and me watching WCW all that during that time because we were watching both. I mean, we're not gonna lie, we were channel surfing. But it was because of the NWO. It's because wrestling was the Monday Night Wars in general was an awesome time to be a wrestling fan, and because of the NWO, they were on the roll. WCW was on a roll. And yeah, but you know what? There's an old saying. All good things must come to an end. The NWO storyline basically just played itself out because they kept adding other members, and it was just one huge faction, you know. But Hogan said this in the NWO Back in Black DVD they released for the WWE that time in 2002. Hogan said something that's absolutely very, very true. As we added friends and other members, it seemed to weaken it. But the NWO was so strong, you could take an ordinary average wrestler, put the NWO colors for lights on that average wrestler, and he became a star overnight. And that's absolutely true. But they fucking milked that shit even until the end, until the end of WCW, up until NWO 2000. But Hogan was not part of it, you know, because Hogan left the WCW in the year 2000 because of disagreements with Vince Russo, because he did not want to he did not want to lose to Jeff Jarrett in Bash at the Beach. In the same building, he turned bad guy. But he left WCW in the year 2000, and then he went back to at that time, the WWF in 2000. He came back with the NWO with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash at No Way Out pay-per-view. And then that year, Hogan came back and he challenged The Rock at WrestleMania 18. Man, I remember that pay-per-view. It was fucking awesome. I watched that pay-per-view at that time. And it was so fucking awesome. I was cheering for The Rock, obviously, because I was a Rock fan. But the original match was Hulk Hogan versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Can you imagine at that time if that match would have occurred at WrestleMania 18, Hulk Hogan against Stone Cold Steve Austin? I think it would have been a huge, huge historical match. But sadly, it never happened because, number one, Stone Cold refused to work with Hulk Hogan. And he did not want to lose to Hulk Hogan. You know how Hulk Hogan doesn't want to lose? Because he always wants to play politics. He doesn't want to lose cleanly. Same thing with Hulk Hogan. With Stone Cold Steve Austin. And Stone Cold had a history with Hogan because around at that time, Stunning Steve Austin was in WCW, and and at that time he was going to get a push because the booker was Ric Flair, and he was being pushed to be the next guy. But once Hogan arrived, things changed, and he also was injured, and Eric Bischoff basically fired him via FedEx. In my opinion, which is probably one of the worst ways to get fired. And also, like I said, Stone Cold had problems with Hogan, and he did. And for WrestleMania 18, they want to do that match, and Stone Cold steadfully refused to work with Hogan. He did not want to work with Hulk Hogan at all. So instead, we got the match against Hulk Hogan versus The Rock, and let me tell you, that match was fucking. It was so loud. I remember watching that pay per view. My brother and me were like, both of us were cheering for The Rock. And then when Hogan arrived, the match was supposedly Hogan was the bad guy. But when he arrived at Toronto, at the Sky Dome at that time, people were cheering for him. And then The Rock came in, and they were all like circling around the ring. And then when they came face to face together, they were all like the flashballs. That was actually, like, I would say, one of the dream matches everyone wanted to see. Hogan against The Rock, and that match was fucking awesome. That should have been the main event, but everyone has said that The Rock versus Hulk Hogan should have been the main event at WrestleMania 18, but, the guy, Triple H, did not want to do that. So, because it was supposed to be the match against Triple H against Chris Jericho for the Undisputed World Wrestling Federation Championship. I mean, everyone was all, like, nobody cared, because they saw the true main event, which was Hogan against The Rock. And that was considered one of the best matches for that pay-per-view. So Hogan stuck around for that year. He tagged around with Edge, and then he went back to the red and yellow. And then in 2003, he wrestled against Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 19. And later on in the year, he came back as Mr. America, but he left because of how he was being booked. And then the following year, he was supposed to be at TNA to confront Jeff Jarrett, because there's even videos, if you look around on YouTube, that Jeff Jarrett hit Hulk Hogan with the guitar. There were talks with TNA that he was going to sign with the new company, but his knees were quote unquote acting up, so they never went back to negotiate. And then supposedly around that time, 2004. Hogan was supposed in negotiations with the WWE, to come back for WrestleMania 20, because it took place in Madison Square Garden, and nothing came out of it. Then the Hall of Fame came back in 2004. They inducted these new members like Jesse Ventura. What's his name? I forget who it was. The other member. Oh, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Sergeant Slaughter, Pete Rose, Greg the Hammer Valentine. I forget who were the other members, but the following year, 2005, WrestleMania 21 was going to take place here in Los Angeles at the Staples Center. And then they were going to induct the Hall of Fame. It was none other than the main one was Hulk Hogan. And that signaled his return to the WWE. He came out to help out Eugene against Muhammad Hassan, and Hogan came out through a thunderous ovation, and it was huge. And then that year, he wrestled against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania at SummerSlam. And then he just was around, and then up until 2007, he left, and then later on he went to TNA. He was there, and when Hogan and Eric Bischoff arrived in TNA, I'm sorry for saying this, ladies and gentlemen, but his tenure in that company fucking killed it, in my opinion. Because they did a lot of changes. Because at that time, TNA had the 6-sided ring. TNA was unique. Was a lot different and it's unique, But Hogan and Bischoff came in, they got rid of the 6-sided ring, they came back to the regular ring, the 4-sided ring. Basically, Hogan in TNA completely fucking sucked camel dick. I'm sorry. And then he stayed there from up until 2014, I believe. Then that year, he came back to the WWE, and he was the WrestleMania host for WrestleMania 30, I believe. And he was, Hogan was always going to different companies and going back to the WWE. He always had to wind up going back to the WWE. But something happened. And I'll never forget this. Exactly in July, 10 years ago, back in July, in 2015, Hogan was fired from the WWE because of racist rant that he went on after he messed around with Heather Clem, which was at that time who was the wife of Bubba the Love Sponge, who was then Hulk Hogan's friend. And also, I do remember hearing about this. It's just a long story. It says here that this is from Wikipedia, by the way. Bolea versus Gawker was a lawsuit filed in 2013 Circuit Court in Pinellas County. In the suit, professional wrestler Terry Gene Bollea, known professionally as Hulk Hogan, sued Gawker Media, publisher of the Gawker website, and several Gawker employees and Gawker-affiliated entities for posting portions of a sex tape of Bollea with Heather Clem, at the time the wife of radio personality Bubba the Love Sponge. Bollea's claims that included invasion of privacy, infringement of personality rights, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Prior to the trial, Bollea's lawyers said the privacy of many Americans was at stake, while Gawker's lawyers said that the case could not hurt freedom of the press in the United States. Bollea sought $100 million in damages. In March 2016, the jury found Gawker liable and awarded Bollea $115 million in compensatory damages and $25 million in punitive damages. 3 months after the verdict, Gawker filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection and put itself up for sale. It says here that on November 2nd, 2016, Gawker reached a $31 million settlement with Bollea. It says here that, and this is the background, in 2006, Bollea was videotaped while having sex with Heather Clem at trial. He claimed that the videotaping was without his knowledge or consent. On the Howard Stern show, Bollea told Stern that he had slept with Heather with Bubba Clem's blessing and his encouragement because he was so burnt out from the trauma of his coming divorce, and he finally gave in to the, quote, relentless come-ons from Heather, who kept going down that road. Bollea said that he knew that Clem had an alternative lifestyle and that he had stopped by their house just to say hello. When Heather tempted him, Bollea later testified, "I was depressed, I gave up, and I gave in, and I felt that those people loved me." Bubba testified that he burned the video to a DVD, wrote, quote, Hogan on it, and put it on a desk drawer. On October 4th, 2012, Gawker editor A.J. Delario published a 2-minute extract from the 30-minute video, including 10 seconds of explicit sexual activity. It says here that Bollea originally sued Gawker for copyright infringement in the United States District Court for Middle District of Florida, seeking a temporary injunction, but Bollea's lawyer was Charles Harder. U.S. District Judge James D. Whitmore denied Bollea's motion, ruling that the validity of the copyright was in question and that given the degree which Bollea had already put his own private life into a public arena, the publication of the video might be protected by fair use. It says here that he withdrew his case in the U.S. District Court and sued Gawker in the Florida State Court. There, his request for an injunction was granted by Judge Pamela Campbell in 2013. Gawker announced that it would not comply with the court order requiring the removal of the post and associated commentary because it deemed order risible and contemptuous of centuries First Amendment jurisprudence. Gawker removed the video itself, but linked readers to another site hosting the video. It says here that the trial and the verdict. The 6-person jury consisted of 4 women and 2 men. The trial lasted for 2 weeks. During the trial, Gawker argued that Bollea made his sex life a public matter, although cross-examination when asked by Bollea's lawyer whether the depiction of his genitalia had any, quote, news value, unquote. Former Gawker editor A.J. Delario responded no. Bollea said that the comments made in interviews were done in his professional wrestling character. And aftermath, it says here that in May 2016, It was reported that Bollea had sued Gawker again, allegedly that they were responsible for leaking sealed court documents that quoted him using racial slurs. The transcripts were published by the National Enquirer, and World Wrestling Entertainment subsequently fired him. Gawker denied being responsible for the leak. Bollea would be re-signed by the WWE on July 15th, 2018. Kind of familiar. But in regards to that, sex tape, there's always been rumors, strong rumors that Mike Calta, this radio personality in Tampa, Florida, was the one that released the sex tape. There's never been any evidence about that, but Bubba the Love Sponge has always said that a lot, including Hulk Hogan, and Mike has always denied it. I mean, there's no evidence for that. That's like, to me, that's like a very serious accusation. And for them to say that it was Mike Calta, how do they know that? Mike has denied. Like I said, I don't know. I would say that's just hearsay. All hearsay. But it is what it is. And it says here that the National Enquirer, the late Michael Jackson said this once upon a time. Don't believe the tabloids, because they just say stuff just to speculate. It's all a bunch of conspiracy theories. It's just junk food. But little do they know that they spoke the truth about this. And here's the video. Because of this racist rant, that would haunt Hulk Hogan from the day until he died. And I'm going to play the tape. First and foremost, I'm going to say that I do not approve of any racism. Fuck racism. I'm just putting, because a lot of people say, where did he said that? It's all over YouTube. And here's a clip. Like I said, number one, viewer discretion is advised. I don't approve of this bullshit that Hogan did. And this is what he said. This is what fucking blackballed him for a period of time in the WWE. Like I said, viewer discretion advised.
Basically did more for her a year than anybody's done. Okay, he had one song after 10 months that she went back up and back and back still. And momentum, but I try to keep the realist, and this is your option. You got another option. Said you can get signed with fucking. He's gonna put spot there. How you go right now? There's nothing else. We're doing the best we can. So it gets to the point where I really broke was fucking the black and the sun. We've been hanging out. I caught them holding hands together on the tour. Never get close. I knew more. I don't give a fuck. Okay. I'm not a double standard. I'm a racist to a point. Yeah. Fucking weird. But then when it comes to nice people, we all are that way. Yeah, but when it comes to nice people, you can't say. I don't give a fuck. She's already fucking football. I'm going to talk basketball player. If we're going to talk with vendors, we'll see the rich one. The thing is, now they start doing these nasty emails, so some would arrive at a relationship. And so now don't ever talk to anybody. No.
Y'all heard that. When I heard that a while back for the first time, it did not surprise me at all. I'm not going to lie to you. Nothing, not at all. Because this dude right here was bitching and complaining just because his daughter was dating a black man. man, it's just like I don't know. Like, what is it with, like, like I say, it doesn't surprise us because number one, where the fuck was Hogan from? He was born in Augusta, Georgia. That says it all. Like I said, I'm not saying all people from the South are racist. Not all of them, but when you say the South, there's your answer. And that right there, WWE fired him. He was blacklisted. He was removed from the Hall of Fame, even from the alumni section. And he was re-signed back to the WWE in July 15th, 2018. He came back when Mean Gene Okerlund died. Hogan came back and he was, like trying to redeem himself. But if Hogan would have kept his mouth shut, because we all know, like, everyone's privacy is always at stake. Everyone thinks that we're all alone in certain areas. But look what happened with Heather and Bubba the Love Sponge. Who would ever thought that they were there? They were being recorded. Hogan didn't think he was being recorded. But I believe that if Hogan had not been recorded here saying all this stuff, I think his legacy would have not been tarnished, because when Hogan came back, it was just a mess. Even what's his name? Hogan said that even people like in the back, like in the locker room, some of them were not like very receptive towards him, and he you can tell that he resented that. But like I said, Hogan should have not said those things. If he would not said that, I think everything would have been a different story. But Hogan was a fucking dope for saying that. But yeah, and then this year he came back to open Monday Night Raw, and because on the debut of Netflix on Raw on Netflix, and he came out, and people, especially, and it took place here of all places in Los Angeles. We all know that Los Angeles is a predominantly Latino Hispanic population, and people booed his ass. You could tell that they said that Jimmy Hart said that he was hurt by the reaction, and then he was like pretending like it doesn't bother him, and I was like, sorry, that was the result, And he was there to promote his new beer, his Real American beer. And let me see if I can find it. Give me 1 second.
Great to see everybody.
Just keep on coming with Jimmy Hart.
Great to see everybody.
Holy hell! Holy hell! Brother! The hits just keep on coming with Jimmy Hart. If it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, we would not be here tonight.
Amen to that. Well, let me tell you something, brother.
They were
You
not
know
having
something,
it.
maniacs? I've been in this business for over 40 years, and the greatest part of my life was being part of this great WWE, guys. You know, I've had all kind of tag team partners over the years, but you, the fans, have been my greatest tag team partner because you guys have stuck with me through thick and thin, dudes. You know, I've got a new tag team partner right now. I got Hulk Hogan's Real American Beer that I've teamed up. And in the past, I've had a whole bunch of partners down the line. I had incredible partners like, ooh, yeah, the Macho Man Randy Savage. I've had giant-sized partners like Andre the Giant. But the greatest partner that the WWE has ever had is the fact tonight we're making history and the WWE is tag teamed up with Netflix, the greatest tag team partner of all time. So what you gonna do when the WWE and Netflix runs wild on you, maniacs?
Well, Hulk Hogan's Real American Beer is now an official partner of WWE. Get ready. Head to therealamerican.com for all the latest updates.
I don't know how much Real American beer they're drinking in here, but I'll tell you what, I can't wait to sip with you, brother.
That was a reaction, ladies and gentlemen. You can tell that Jimmy Hart was like, oh shit, I need to get the fuck out of here. But Jimmy Hart confirmed that Hulk Hogan was hurt. He was deeply hurt. He was deeply sad himself. And you know, there's videos here like with Undertaker reacting to Hogan being booed. He was laughing like, fuck the Undertaker. I'm not like, I have my thing with him. It's just that's that. Just I don't care. You see that a lot of people like were reacting about that, and Eric Bischoff. Everybody was reacting how Hogan was booed when that shit happened. But lo and behold, that will be the final time Hogan came out in person in a WWE capacity. Because I remember hearing. There was always rumors of, they say that this dude was on his deathbed, that he was not doing well and all that stuff. And I was like, but you know, that's what they are. Rumors, ladies and gentlemen. There was never any facts. Hell, even the day before he passed away, Jimmy Hart said that he spoke to Hogan, that he was doing well, and he was doing fantastic. But the day that he got sick, he was there's a video that's been circulating around Twitter, and they were saying that he was being they were taken out on a gurney out of his house in Clearwater, Florida, and he was like not doing well, and they were taking him to the hospital. But on July, let me see, forgive me, ladies and gentlemen. So on July 24th, 2025, Hulk Hogan died at the age of 21. And they just cremated his body. They did at the funeral and they cremated his body immediately. But they're saying that the cause of death was a heart attack. It says here that there's new details. This is from CBS Sports, by the way. It says here that new details about Hulk Hogan's health have emerged after his death. Hogan's cause of death was officially ruled a heart attack, with medical documents also revealing his history with leukemia. Oh, man. It says here that forensic documents confirm acute myocardial infarction, commonly known as a heart attack, as the cause of death of Hulk Hogan. But it also says that they're saying that he also had leukemia, CLL, a type of cancer affecting the white blood cells and bone marrow. It says here that a spokesperson for the Pinellas County Forensic Science Center told the publication that Hogan's death was certified by his primary care physician, and the medical examiner did not have a case into Hogan's death. Hogan, a 6-time WWE champion and 2-time WWE Hall of Famer, is survived by his wife, Sky Daly, and his wives, Linda Hogan and Jennifer McDaniel, as well as his children, Brooke and Nick Hogan. And yesterday, on August 5th, was the funeral for Hulk Hogan. A lot of people showed up, like in terms of celebrities. I know it's Kid Rock, Sylvester Stallone, etc. Like WWE, like Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, Vince McMahon, and I read that it says it on Twitter that WWE wrote a long statement that they lost one of the biggest stars of all time. And yeah, it was, because like I said before at the beginning of this episode, if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, wrestling wouldn't be as big as it is today. And this has happened the day after he passed away. This is WWE pays tribute to Hulk Hogan with a 10-bell salute on SmackDown highlights on July 25th, 2025. This is the SmackDown Day episode, courtesy of WWE, by the way.
Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday we lost one of the biggest and most globally recognized icons in the world. A man I grew up watching, was fortunate enough to share the ring with, and like so many of us, were honored to call a friend. The truth is, he captivated millions of people and inspired them around the globe. We would not be standing here right now, all of us together, if it was not for him. So please help us honor him now as we give a 10-bell salute to Terry Bollea, the one and the only, the immortal Hulk Hogan.
That was WWE's tribute to Hulk Hogan. And for the past few days, I remember when I think it was I forgot this fellow's name who passed away, and he was working with WWE at that time. I don't know. both WWE and AEW pay tribute to him. But a lot of people have been criticizing Tony Khan for not acknowledging Hulk Hogan. And I don't know. I look, who are we to judge? Look, I have my issues with Tony Khan, but I do believe, this is just my opinion, by the way. I do believe that, I believe that Tony Khan did not really want to acknowledge Hulk Hogan because, number one, he was never part of AEW. And also, I do believe that Tony Khan did not really want to associate with Hulk Hogan because we all know that he was a racist. It's a sad fact of life. However, though, AEW finally acknowledged Hulk Hogan, and this is Tony Schiavone. Everyone remembers him during the days of WCW, and this is what he talks about Hulk Hogan. This is like finally AEW acknowledges Hulk Hogan. This is him, by the way, courtesy of AEW, by the way.
It was quite a week for all of us who have been in professional wrestling for a long time with the unexpected death of Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was the man who brought professional wrestling into the mainstream in the 80s and in the 90s, right here on this network, right here on TNT. Almost 30 years ago, Hulk Hogan lit the fire that began the Monday Night Wars. And he also put WCW on the cable TV map right here on TNT. And, you know, sometimes we take a look at these stars that are bigger than life, and we forget that they are just like us human. And we forget they have families that care about them. Our condolences go out to Hulk's family, his children, Brooke and Nick, his wife, Sky. And if you've never lost a member of your family, you have no idea what the pain they are going through right now. And believe you me, it is intense. From all of us here at All Elite Wrestling, R.I.P., brother.
That was Tony Schiavone paying tribute to Hulk Hogan. I remember a lot of wrestlers have paid tribute to Hulk Hogan, and one of them is Ric Flair, and Ric Flair right now is inconsolable. And he released videos of how he's basically crying his ass off. What happened with Hogan? Other wrestlers have expressed their sympathies to Hogan and his family. But, you know, at the same time, there's always the quiet ones who have not said a word. And one of them, I believe, is everyone's saying Bret the Hitman Hart has been quiet about that. Well, like I said, I will talk about that for a future episode. I've never really have an opinion about that, because if Bret Hart has his issue with what's his name, with Hogan, and also the other one that's been very quiet about, and it's very obvious why he hasn't said anything, because of the heat that they have, is Jesse the Body Ventura. And you know, it is what it is, you know. And yeah, and this is what WWE said on Twitter. WWE is saddened to learn WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan has died. One of pop culture's most recognizable figures, Hogan helped WWE achieve global recognition in the 1980s. WWE extends its condolences to Hogan's family, friends, and fans. So, in conclusion, in closing this episode, okay, what can I say? Look, I'm going to be very, very frank. I was never really a hardcore Hulk Hogan fan. Like I said, Hulk Hogan was already out when I started watching wrestling in September 1992. When he came back in WrestleMania 9, I was a little bit indifferent towards him. And when he was in the NWO, he was okay, but was I a hardcore fan of him? No, I was always more of like I said, a Bret the Hitman Hart fan, Stone Cold Steve Austin fan, Razor Ramon and Diesel. I was never a Hulk Hogan fan, but like I said, he basically tarnished his legacy. If he had not opened his mouth and said these fucking racist things, his legacy would have been intact. He would have been remembered as a great wrestler, a great entertainer, basically great everything. But sadly, like even like the fans of the who grew up watching him are like ones are more like, oh man, that sucks. But the new generation fans in this era, they're not so forgiving towards him. And like I said, I'm indifferent about Hulk Hogan. I do feel feel bad for his family, his wife. It's no secret that he was a racist. I'm sorry. That's his legacy. But was he... I'll give him credit. He was the biggest star of all time. He made wrestling as big as it is today. So, yeah, that's all I could say about Hulk Hogan. All I can say is rest in peace. And, yeah. Thanks for making wrestling as big as it is today. Thanks.